Picture this: pristine beaches, kangaroos hopping around every corner, and salaries that make your head spin. When you think of Australia, you imagine endless sunshine, top-notch quality of life, and an economy that looks straight out of a glossy ad. And hey, that's no accident. Australia's basically sitting on a gold mine. Well, gold, coal, iron ore, natural gas. You name it. It's the wet dream of any industrial powerhouse. They did their homework, liberalized the economy, flung open the markets, and hopped on the globalization bandwagon. The payoff? Australia turned into one of the steadiest economies in the developed world. Plus, its spot on the map is prime real estate, right next door to Asia. That made it the go-to grocery store for raw materials, feeding giants like China, India, and Japan. And what about 2008, when the whole world was burning in the financial crisis fire? Australia pulled off an epic plot twist. While everyone else was knee-deep in recession, they were surfing, literally, a supercharged commodities boom. Exports went through the roof, and they sailed through unscathed with an unbeatable primary sector, low public debt, fat fiscal surpluses, and a per capita GDP that screamed luxury. Australia earned its stripes as the star pupil of capitalism. That's why what you're about to see in this chart will drop your jaw. As you can see, starting around 2022, Australia's standard of living has tanked hard compared to other developed nations. What the heck happened? In 2022, Aussies yanked the will hard left. The left-leaning Labour Party, under Anthony Albanese, grabbed the reins. It was the first majority left-wing government since 2007, after 3 terms of conservative rule. So, what's gone down since? The economic numbers aren't exactly popping champagne. By late 2024, Australian household disposable income cratered, not a little dip, but the worst in the entire OECD. That's especially brutal when you stack it up against other English-speaking countries. Folks down under weren't thrilled with how the Labour experiment was playing out. Things are so rough that some experts are whispering about a lost decade. Forecasts say pre-Labour living standards won't bounce back until at least 2030. Kiss goodbye to that fancy brunch in Sydney. At this rate, even Vegemite on toast is off the menu. And if that's not enough, S&P, the same outfit that grades sovereign debt, dropped a bombshell. Australia risks losing its prized AAA rating. We all know what happens when that slips: borrowing costs skyrocket. So, no, the Aussie economy isn't exactly flexing right now. But here's the meat of it: what's really going down? Why has household income nosedived? And can we flip this mess around? That's what we're unpacking in this video. One of the biggest headaches slamming Australian industry is the power bill. On the surface, electricity prices in Australia don't look insane, they're just a smidge above the OECD average. Nothing to lose sleep over. But the devil's in the details. Adjust for cost of living, and the picture flips dramatically. Australia shoots up to one of the priciest spots for electricity among developed nations. Plugging in your microwave in Sydney stings way more than in Paris, Toronto, or even New York. As the chart shows, when you factor in living costs, Australia's electricity ranks 3rd most expensive in the developed world, trailing only Germany and the UK. Just like in Europe, Australia jumped on the green bandwagon, swapping out natural gas for renewables in a big push for ecological transition. That ramped up big time after the new government took over, with Labour locking down Parliament. And since they needed the Greens' backing to govern, everything got rushed through at warp speed. The fallout? Headlines like this: Aussie miners and smelters begging for government bailouts during the energy shift. Right now, Albanese's flagship energy bet isn't following the script. And in Aussie industry, especially mining and smelting, the green pivot is breeding bad vibes. Want an example? Glencore, the British mining behemoth, just threw in the towel. Their Queensland smelter? No longer viable. Blame it on sky-high energy costs, fat wages, and a shortage of key inputs like copper. That's a killer combo. When copper's already scarce, good luck mining it when power costs an arm and a leg. It's like panning for gold with a rented spoon. And this isn't a one-off. Tomago, an aluminum smelter guzzling 10% of New South Wales electricity, is teetering on the edge. The state government's already eyeing a rescue package. And get this, we're not talking a handful of hard hats here. Mining accounts for 12% of Australia's GDP. It's a cornerstone. If it wobbles, everything shakes. But the pain isn't just in the pits, the farm belt's drowning too. Farmers and ranchers, hammered by the government's green policies, dug in their heels hard. They became a vote goldmine for the opposition. For now, Canberra is tossing subsidies to quiet the grumbles, but that's not sustainable forever. On top of that, the renewables frenzy had nearly every home slapping solar panels on their roofs. Cheap, clean power, what could go wrong? Plenty. All those panels flooded the grid, tanking demand for traditional energy. Yeah, you heard that right. In 2024, EMO, the Aussie electricity market operator, forecast demand dipping to a historic low of 1,350 megawatts. Low demand spells trouble, the system's at risk of overload, sparking nationwide blackouts. Sounds familiar, right? And that's not all. Australia's massive trade ties with China? Double-edged sword. Sure, exporting freely rocks, but cheap Chinese imports have gutted local markets, especially in smelting and steel. That dependency bites hard. Take this quirky but telling nugget: KFC had to swap lettuce for cabbage in their sandwiches. Why? Lettuce hit $12 a head. Lettuce. Everything's absurdly expensive. Faced with this mess, business leaders and polls are floating wild fixes, like nationalizing shaky outfits to dodge bankruptcies or foreign buyouts. Nobody wants a strategic smelter ending up with a Chinese owner, or handing over those crown jewel resources to overseas players after decades as Australia's ace in the hole. But nationalizing unproductive sectors? That's no free lunch, especially when they're already outgunned by global rivals. The upshot? Dragging down the whole country's productivity even further. And speaking of productivity, that's the real Achilles heel of the Aussie economy right now. A brutal nosedive. Check the chart. Australia's productivity is sliding downhill fast, mirroring per capita GDP. In Q4 2024 alone, it dropped 1%. One data point, sure, but it slots right into the parade of red flags waving over the economy. This flies in the face of its golden era. From 1993 to 2016, productivity chugged along at a steady clip, nearly 2% a year. That magic sauce rocketed Australia to one of the planet's richest spots with killer living standards. But since? Zilch. Flatline. And from 2022? Straight drop-off. No shocker that stagnant or falling productivity tanks per capita GDP and household incomes. Produce less, share less, pocket less. Simple math. So, what's gut-punched productivity? One big culprit: immigration. Not just any immigration, low-skilled waves. Australia's been a magnet for migrants since the 2000s. Over 4 million have poured in since then. A full-on demographic tsunami. The snag? While some arrive skilled up, many don't, and the government's fumbled integrating them into the job market. In an economy hooked on mining, upskilling workers is make or break for output. Result? More heads, more hands, but zero productivity pop. For population booms to pay off, you need housing, infrastructure, and an economy that can swallow them whole. Australia's tripped there big time. Cities like Sydney and Melbourne are bursting at the seams, with folks piling into a few hotspots. Home prices have exploded, public transit's maxed out, and tempers are fraying. Fair dinkum. That's not the whole story. Labor's labor policies are the other leg of this stool. Australia always boasted a near-perfect job market. Unemployment barely kissed 7% in the pandemic, usually hovering at 4%, what economists call frictional unemployment, aka basically full employment. But since 2022, Albanese's crew has gone all in on public spending, bloating government hiring. What happens when Uncle Sam hires like there's no tomorrow? Resources get siphoned off. Productivity suffers, and the private sector's engine sputters. Check this: compare public versus private job growth since 2019, and the gap's glaring. As the chart shows, after the 2020 dip, public hirings lapped private by miles. Since 2022, 82% of new jobs are public sector, health, admin, education leading the charge. With the migrant flood, those services needed beefing up. But here's the rub: in a decade, public jobs slice of the pie ballooned from 12.5% to nearly 18%. Experts are side-eyeing it hard. This public reliance screams inefficiency. Public workers, especially in services, clock lower productivity. And bankrolling this hiring spree? It carves holes in the books. Spend more, deficits everywhere, federal and state. All this jazz has the Reserve Bank slashing growth forecasts, meaning slimmer family wallets and crappier living standards. And pals, with this toxic brew, Australia rolled into the May 2025 elections. Albanese was gambling on re-election. Odds looked grim. Challenger Peter Dutton had it easy: skyrocketing living costs, housing chaos, strained health systems. Plus, Albanese had just tanked a big referendum. One pushing to enshrine Indigenous voices in the Constitution with their own assembly. A personal passion project that flopped hard. The opposition hammered it. Albanese inherited full employment, rock-solid growth, clean books, and blew it on everything but management. With that baggage, nobody bet a buck on his win. So, what went down? Buckle up, this'll shock you. Left scores crushing win in Australian elections, thanks to the Trump factor. In the Anglosphere, Trump's still a lightning rod. His shadow stretches way beyond the states. Canada's Exhibit A, we saw it with Mark Carney and the Liberals. Elections flipped overnight, and Australia echoed that. Voters pegged Dutton as Trump's Aussie twin. Cue a massive swing left. The center-right got obliterated, historic wipeout. So bad Dutton, after 24 years in Parliament, lost his own seat. Total train wreck for a guy who'd grazed power for years. Now Albanese's got 4 more years to steady the ship, or sink it deeper. 4 years to keep these scary stats from doomsday. But it's no cakewalk. To productivity woes, housing hell, and energy headaches. Add a trade war. Ironically, Trump's one reason Albanese snagged an extension, but he could turn into the biggest thorn. Trump's rolling in with 25% tariffs, slapping Australia too. And anything riling China hits Canberra Square. Don't forget, Beijing's their top trade buddy, and Trump's made it clear, no love lost with Peking. So Albanese's hitting the ground running. First up, a summit with govs, bosses, and unions to crack the energy nut. Sure, spinning up a commission often just kicks the can, but at least it shows he's tuned in. Second, greenlighting a massive 45-year project. That irks some tree huggers but earns cheers from Big Biz. All while ramming through the $22 billion plus future made in Australia push, pouring cash into manufacturing, green energy, and knowledge economy plays. Will it work? Can Albanese right the ship? Who knows, but he's stepping up wiser, with poll scares still fresh. And with that, the ball's in your court. Did you know Australia was wrestling these demons? Think Labour blew the election and revives the economy? Is this a blip, or the end of one of the developed world's biggest success stories? Drop your take in the comments. As always, we drop fresh vids weekly. Subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss a beat. Love this? Smash like, and catch you next time. Cheers.